NFL Week 10, NFL Blitz. And this is a very special show. We have interviews with Jonathan Taylor from the Colts, Adam Thielen from the Vikings, and Knox from the Bills, right?
Yeah, Dawson Knox.
Ted, take off from Sports USA Live. Give us the inside scoop.
All right, well, we got Minnesota and Buffalo is the first game of our Sports USA doubleheader on Sunday. It all starts at 9:30 in the morning with my NFL warm-up show. That's West Coast time, of course, followed by the Colts and the Raiders, and we'll get to that one in a bit because that one is a wacky combination of teams for sure. One of the strangest matchups of the year. And right now, we're looking at the latest here on Friday. Probably is going to be some snow in Buffalo, so that could be a factor in the game. Temperature in the mid to lower 30s, so it looks like summer is definitely over, guys, in that respect. It's about time, too. But how about Buffalo? We don't know what's going on with Josh Allen because he doesn't know. It's a nerve issue in his elbow, so he has not practiced all week, and he may not practice, and they're calling him an hour-to-hour decision.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, Ted. I'll give you the latest update because it just scrolled across that he did show up and was limited in practice today. He was not wearing a cast, and he's on the questionable list.
Right. But as far as I understand, limited means that he was dressed for practice. Whether he was actually throwing the ball or not, I don't think so, according to his coach who spoke late yesterday about this. So we'll see. Bottom line is if he doesn't play, it's up to Case Keenum to get the job done. And he's a pretty good backup. I have no problem with him in there. He has zero mobility, so you're not going to see any of the runs that Josh Allen does. I think that one of the biggest questions in this game is how does Buffalo run the ball at all without Josh Allen, because their run game has been zero as of late. And it's going to be interesting. Another stat to look for, the Bills lead the league in offensive drives ending in a turnover, which is really strange for a Super Bowl favorite. And guess what? The Vikings have have made sure that they are sixth in the league in takeaways, 14. So that's an interesting combination there. Weather could be certainly a factor. Minnesota's a dome team for the most part, right? So we'll see how that goes. Ron, what are your thoughts on that?
It's a fascinating game from Minnesota's standpoint. I look back at their last six opponents. So they played Detroit, at New Orleans, Chicago, at Miami, Arizona, and at Washington. Some of them with some backup quarterbacks. So we're not looking, I still don't know what we have in Minnesota. They seem like a good team. They seem like the chemistry is right. I've said it on numerous shows that I projected a large number of sacks for them, 47. They're not quite to the halfway point in the season, and they do have 24, so that is working.
Yeah, that's great.
They will allow some pass completions, whether it be Case Keenum or Josh Allen. And Cook, who's one of those running backs that makes a difference because he is electrifying with the ball in his hands, whether it be via the pass or the run, and he's rested and healthy. And then the other thing, throw it over to Chris, I'll go to Buffalo later, is that Hawkinson, who came over from Detroit, didn't take him long to get acclimated, did it? 9 catches, 70 yards. I guess he was an asset if used correctly. What do you got, Chris?
Yeah, I think there's some seller's remorse in D-Town with Hawkinson. A lot of ridicule on that trade. We're going to have to see. I thought that, if they weren't going to use him, then you might as well get rid of them and get some great value. But I thought that they could have gotten more on that. My concern on this game is the weather. We're getting some conflicting reports. My Ted and my weather different sources say that it's supposed to snow the entire game. And as you looked up, Ron, you didn't find that. So a little bit of a concern there. And obviously, this Allen game, I just can't fathom that they're going to play him. It just seems very short-sighted. Their season, Ron, wouldn't you agree, Ted? their season's a failure without a Super Bowl appearance, and it may even be a failure with a Super Bowl loss. So how do you risk that?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't risk my quarterback. They're saying it's not like surgery is necessary. It's a nerve thing in the elbow. So that's simply a time thing. You got to let it, relax. And I mean, I've been dealing with nerve issues myself. I just had back surgery a few months ago. So I become much too much of an expert on it. And it is time. And it just takes time. And if they got to rush him back, it's like, what are you doing it for? It's one game. It's not the end of your season. It's not a divisional game in that respect. They're 0-2 in the division this year. So that's a thing to think about. But it doesn't affect them this week. So why risk it? I wouldn't. What do you think, Ron?
Well, you got a situation. They're going to play this Sunday, next Sunday, and then the following Thursday.
Yep,
so they're going to have 3 games in a very short period of time. And you don't want this to backfire if they play him before it's necessary, because they're in it for the long haul. Like Chris said, they remember the last 13 seconds of the playoffs last year. And that's once they get to the playoffs, they want to overcome that.
Right.
You have a couple of interviews you mentioned. I have some more comments on Buffalo, but I'd love to hear the interviews first because I haven't heard them.
All right, why don't we go with Adam Thielen first, who just passed a really impressive milestone for the Vikings. Go for it, Chris.
I got to pass along the big congrats. 500 receptions last Sunday. Only Hall of Famers Chris Carter and Randy Moss are ahead of you in team history. What does that mean to my favorite personal story as an undrafted free agent?
Yeah, I hate to be cliche, but honestly, for me, those will be things that I'll look back on when I'm done playing and be able to really appreciate and kind of look at. But right now, this league's so tough, and your focus just has to be week in and week out on how you can get better. I feel like it was a weird game to get to a milestone just because. I felt like I played one of my worst games. So just trying to find a way to get back on the field here and just continue to get better and try to help this team win football games.
Tell you what, I'll do the celebration for you then. How's that?
I appreciate it. There we go.
No problem. Hey, what do you see as one of the bigger challenges against the Buffalo defense coming up here?
Well, honestly, when you're looking at from an offensive perspective against their defense, I think you have a challenge at every level, which when you're a defensive coach or you're putting together a team, that's a really good thing to have when an opposing offense is saying that we have a challenge at every level, just because they can get after the passer, they can run, they can fly around and be physical on the second level, and then that third level they have a lot of players that even with some guys that are all pro guys that are out, they have guys that are filling in and playing at a high level. So I think it's a great challenge for our offense to show, hey, this is a really good defense. Let's go show what we can do as an offense. And it's not going to be easy. There's going to be no gimmies. It's going to be a lot of work and a grind, but just keep working. And I think we have the guys to be able to go and show that we're a really good offense.
I did my homework on you, by the way. Most catches in a single game, 14, September of 2018 against Buffalo. 19 targets. How much you remember that one? And maybe something to bring up to Kirk in the huddle on Sunday?
Well, if I remember right, it probably wasn't a good thing I was getting targeted that much because I believe we got blown out in that game.
Yes, you did. I didn't want to bring that up.
Usually when you're getting that many targets, it means that you're throwing a lot and you're coming from behind. So it's probably, like I said, that's not necessarily a good indication of how the game was going. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we can get some opportunities and do those things to help your team keep the team win.
With Vikings receiver Adam Thielen, got to ask you about your feelings, what it was like when the Vikes traded Stephon Diggs to Buffalo and then turned that received draft pick into some guy named Justin Jefferson.
Well, I'll start off by saying I'm so blessed and thankful to play with both those guys. Both guys have a great relationship with. Unbelievable football players and great teammates, and have had great relationships with both of them. So very thankful for that. But yeah, definitely emotional time, honestly, just because I had such a great relationship with Diggs and the player that we were losing. It was tough, and I didn't know what that future was going to look like without him. But then to be able to bring in a guy that can step in and play such a big role so quickly, and to be able to sustain that success is so impressive. And again, so thankful to be on the same side of both those guys.
And watching JJ play just from afar, this guy looks like he could be one of the all-time greats.
He can, yeah, absolutely. I think he's one of the best in the game, and I think the cool thing about it is just seeing the way that he handles success. You know, he's a guy who just is out there at practice grinding away every single week. He's having a lot of fun. He's hard on himself. He wants to be great. And when he doesn't play at that level or doesn't have a play at that level, he's hard on himself, which I think is a great thing because he's not going to just be one of those guys that kind of has some success and kind of just hangs out and dwells on that. He's going to be a guy that just wants to keep getting better and wants to prove every single week that he's the best in this game. So, again, I'm very thankful to be on the same side as him.
A couple more things real quick. How do you describe the transition from a defensive-minded head coach to an offensive guy and how that's affected your side of the ball?
Yeah, it's been great. I think, it's tough it's tough when you have a coaching change. It's tough not to just be super positive and talking about how great things are and all that. But we have so much respect and gratitude for what the old staff did for us and all the great times we had and all the positive things that we did. But fast forward to now where we're at, it's great leadership. It's great collaboration, and it's a staff that just wants to keep getting better, whether that's us as individuals helping us get better or themselves, trying to get better as play callers and as coaches. And it's really cool to see because you don't always have that, just that collaboration of hey, like, we're going to try to help you guys get better, but we're also going to learn through the process as well. So it's really been great. Thankful for the coaches that are on the staff and the players, and we're going to try to just continue to keep getting better.
How about the addition of T.J. Hawkinson? That looks like it's a great pickup. Maybe a few less targets for you, though, too.
Yeah, for sure. He is a great fit. He's a talented player. But not only is he a talented player, he's fit in so well with this team just by the personality he is. Kind of what he brings from off the field type of guy. We're very thankful that he's here with us. And going 9 for 9 in a game that you've had 4 days of preparation just shows what kind of guy, what kind of person, and what kind of player that he is. So, I'll give up a few targets if we can continue to win some games and really help each other, feed off one another. And the more guys that are putting pressure on a defense, it only just creates better opportunities for everyone. So, again, very thankful for them to go out there and get a guy like that and to really invest in our future.
Last thing, quickly, Adam, you guys are 7-1, so many close wins. Big next few weeks. How much is this going to show how good you guys really are? Bills, Cowboys, Patriots coming up.
Well, honestly, I just don't think that we're really worried about, proving how good we are. I think the thing about this team is we have to continue to focus week in and week out because, in this league, it's just tough to win. It's really difficult to win. The more years you're in this league, you understand how hard it is. And I think when you lose focus on the task at hand and you start thinking big picture of how we got to prove this or we got to prove that, I feel like you kind of lose the edge in your preparation. So for us, it's just all hands on deck on how can we most effectively prepare to help beat the Bills this week and then just figure it out the next week.
That's Adam Thielen, the third leading receiver in the history of the Minnesota Vikings. Now, over 500 catches. That's really – I didn't realize he was that close. By the way, Justin Jefferson has been there for 10 minutes. He's already halfway to 500. I mean, that's how good this guy is. But it's going to be fascinating to see how T.J. Hawkinson fits in. I don't get why Detroit didn't use him more, Chris. Seriously, I know you're shaking your head again like a bobblehead doll over there, but yeah, exactly. No, what do you think the thinking was for the Lions?
I don't know. We haven't gotten a straight answer out of it. He just wasn't fitting into their scheme. But
he was too good for
their
them.
scheme's going to be entirely different next year. I mean, you can't replace this guy. So
Yeah, it's a disappointment, no doubt. But hey, what for the second time in 3 weeks, we have the only matchup on Sports USA of games with winning records. So that's pretty neat. We're trying to get the best games for you. And a bottom line is the Vikings got a 6-game winning streak, but who have they beaten? Well,
So
a little more of a test.
So this is the third week in a row where there's only been one game where two teams with a winning record have faced each other.
No, I looked that up yesterday. There were a couple of games last week with winning records. Yeah, okay. I looked it up. So. Anyway, bottom line is we got the only one this week. That's all that matters. And any other thoughts, Ron, on this game to wrap things up?
Yeah, I want to take a deeper dive into Case Keenum because Chris and I were talking yesterday offline, and usually when a quarterback is inserted, I need to go back and see what he was. Chris had some thoughts on that as well. By my take, he's probably projected to, and he has a large sample size. He's started a lot of games in the past, but he seems to be on par with Allen. He should hit around 63 to 65% in this game. His interceptions are not high. They're I'd say one out of every 45 to 50 attempts, which has been very consistent throughout his career, and about 2 sacks taken, which would probably be per game, which would probably fit here. So he lacks Allen's dynamic run ability,
of course,
and maybe the real big arm and the chemistry between Allen and Diggs, for example. But there's some things that he could do in a pinch that shouldn't downgrade the team overall. And remember, Buffalo just has 2 losses by a total of 5 points. Unfortunately for them, they're both in a division, so they have to keep winning. And last place in the division is 5-4. So there's not a lot of margin for error, and we all know teams have to stay healthy in order to fulfill their expectations. And Buffalo's dealing with that right now.
Yeah, one of the things I think about Case Keenum is he is a true professional quarterback. I mean, the guy does not make a lot of mistakes. He knows how to run a team, and he's one of my top handful of guys that I would prefer to have as a backup.
So quick quiz: how many games do you think he's been involved in his career that he's actually played?
Played or started? Started. He's probably had over 50.
I didn't realize he had so many. So my angle with you yesterday was with the stats you were just talking about. They're comparable to Allen's. He doesn't throw the picks. He's not a turnover machine. He's mobile. And he does a lot of things well. So I was kind of thinking, well, this total is overcorrected downward. I'm going to look at the over. And I've researched and somebody gave me some data, and the games that he's involved in are about 64% to the under. So kind of kept me off going on the over with him involved in this. As far as a pick, since I'm not going to get a kick in the nuts this week, I'm going to take the bet. I'm going to take the pat on the back, and I'm going to say a little smidgen on the under. And I do like Buffalo after they announce Allen is out.
Okay, so for me, as I mentioned to you offline yesterday, I did take the under 46 without researching Case Keenum.
Easy for you to say.
Before, easy for you to say. And then once I researched it, I'm okay with that because the splash plays may not be there, and I still don't know what Minnesota is. I'm comfortable if the line goes to 3 for any reason. It's sitting around 3.5. To take a far closer look at Buffalo. But right now, it's more of a fascinating game. I still think Minnesota, we don't know exactly where they are in the pecking order. To me, Philly and San Francisco are definitely above Minnesota in the NFC, and we'll try to learn more in the next 2 to 3 weeks based on their schedule.
And we'll try to learn more from Dawson Knox, who's coming up next. One of the guys that Case Keenum will probably be throwing to. What do you think, Chris? Go for it.
Let's run that.
Thank you.
We got to start with the big news, of course, of the week. If you had to guess, does the tough-minded and determined Josh Allen play Sunday?
Thankfully that's not up to me. I have no idea what goes on in that training room. All I know is he's working his tail off to be back as soon as possible.
Yeah, so if it's Case Keenum, what are you seeing from him in practice this week, and what does he bring to your offense?
Yeah, he's just your quintessential professional. I mean, he's been the same this week as he has been the whole year, just because he's in here early, he leaves late, he's getting extra reps at practice. Nothing's changed this week, even though, there's a chance he might be the starter. So it just shows you how much he prepares every other week, even if he knows he's not going to be playing. But he does all the right things. We got all the trust in the world in him, and he's got all the talent in the world too.
Yeah, I remember Case when he came out when the Rams moved to L.A. I got a chance to have a few interactions with him. He seems like a great guy.
Oh, yeah, he's incredible. I mean, we've already hung out a good bit outside the facility. I don't think you could look for a while to try to find someone to say a bad word about that dude. I mean, everyone loves him, from the top of the building down to, anybody else. I mean, everyone's going to have something good to say about him.
That's awesome. Initial thoughts from me, if Josh doesn't play, you guys might get a little more conservative offense. And what I'm looking at is you've had some running issues lately. So how does that come into play, you think, this week?
There's always going to be things to work on. Devin Singletary's he's a hell of a running back, and we're going to get him going and involved as well. And, we got the new guy with Nyheim Hines. But also, we got James Cook. We got Duke, too. So, I mean, that running back room is pretty stacked, and we're excited to get them rolling a little bit.
Yeah, is Cook talking a little bit about playing against his brother?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he's excited about that one. So we'd love to get him in the end zone or something like that this weekend.
How concerned are you that it could be a lingering type injury, though, to Josh's elbow?
I'm not concerned with it just because, any type of worrying I do isn't going to change the
Okay.
injury or anything like that. So, you just pray for the best, hope for the best. And I know he's going to do everything in his power, and he's got all the resources in the world to make sure that he's going to be back as soon as possible in the right way. So we got all the trust in the world in our doctors and trainers, and also trust that Josh is doing all the right things as well.
We're with Bills tight end Dawson Knox. It feels strange talking to you after a loss, which doesn't happen often. Good for you. How tough was that one against the Jets?
Yeah, it was frustrating. They got an incredibly talented defense, so it was a great matchup for us. They presented us with a lot of challenges, and they gave us some stuff that we can work on going forward, too. So that film is there for us, and thankfully we get another shot at them down the road here in a few weeks. But, yeah, I mean, they're talented across the board, and they gave us a good challenge and also showed us that we're capable of beating ourselves in some areas. So there were a lot of things for us to correct.
You guys are 3-0 at home this season. Got to know what it's like playing in front of that Bills Mafia.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that crowd is unlike anything I've ever seen before. I mean, playing in Arrowhead's always fun. Their fans bring the energy. They're super loud, but there's nothing like here with Bills Mafia in Orchard Park.
That's great. And I remember the last time I was there, which was a long time ago, you guys have the greatest tailgating maybe in the history of sports over there.
Unfortunately, I've never been able to experience it firsthand,
Sure.
but I have plenty of stories from friends and family that would attest to that statement. I mean, there's some crazy stuff that goes on in those tailgates, and I'm definitely planning on experiencing it myself one day.
Yeah, should wear a Halloween mask and just hang out before a game. Nobody will ever know what hit them.
I know. Shoot, I missed my opportunity with Halloween, but maybe one day.
How about your biggest challenge that you've studied facing that Vikings defense?
They're very good with stopping the run game. They got a very talented front with some really talented edge rushers that are going to present problems for us in protection. And they got some savvy vets in the secondary. So, again, another very talented defense across the board with guys that know what they're doing, guys that can rush the passer, and guys that can, just move really well in the secondary as well. So, again, another big challenge for us, but we're really excited to take them on this weekend.
Last thing, going into the second half of the season now, you guys have not won in the division, so that's a real key thing moving forward, obviously. And everybody's gunning for you because you've been the Super Bowl favorite since before the season started. What's it like dealing with those expectations every week?
That's a fun thing for us. We're always the game that everyone circles on their schedule. It's fun to be in that position because you know that we know that we're going to get everyone's best week in and week out. It's going to make us better because we're getting, the top of everyone's game every single weekend. So that's only going to make us a better team. And it's just going to present more challenges for us going forward that we're looking forward to overcoming just to make our team stronger from top to bottom.
Bills tight end Dawson Knox, and I think he mentioned it. I think it's the key to this game, the run D for Minnie against Buffalo, and how that's going to affect the mix of pass and run, especially for Case Keenum, who obviously, is good, but he hasn't played much. So if he can't get a run game going, how is that going to affect?
Ron, do you rate your teams by offense and defense or just an overall rating?
Metrically, I take a look at offense and defense and I rate them by category, but the power rating itself is a combination of everything.
I think we remember last year Minnesota was 30th, 31st, 32nd in defense. Am I mistaken on that?
A lot of splash plays allowed. Their defense did not show up last year. It's been a trademark of Zimmer's career how wonderful he's been against the pass. And both in 2020 and 2021, it regressed very un-Zimmer-like, and it led to his eventual removal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's the shocker. I was surprised, on the interview, he's discussing, the Minnesota defense being so good against the run and such. I've got Minnesota, they snuck into the top 10 in defense for me. I mean, that's just a remarkable improvement.
Yeah, normally this would have been a tremendous test. Actually, the next 3 weeks would have been a tremendous test, but we'll see if they get Josh Allen or not, and that may cut down on the splash plays.
Yeah. Move on to the next game.
Let's go to the next game.
The Colts and the Raiders.
The Colts and the Raiders, where, 5 weeks ago we said, hey, this should be a hell of a game. Now it should be, what the hell is going on between these two teams? The coaching staff situation. You got Jeff Saturday on a Sunday. I don't know how that's going to work. Nobody knows that. Jeff Saturday, the guy's never coached a game in his life. So that's a fascinating move there. Frank Reich, obviously, things were going well. Look, Jim Irsay is an unusual character. Let's put it that way. The owner of the team. He has a great collection of musical stuff, which I'm fascinated by, but it has nothing to do with his football team. So he's got a Super Bowl on his resume, but they are so far from that right now. It's not even funny. I don't get what they're doing over there. I don't know why they're using Sam Ehlinger as the third stringer instead of Nick Foles, unless it's a total tank job, which is another reason, I guess, to bring in Saturday because he likes the guy. Everybody likes Jeff Saturday. He's a great guy. Right. So, but it's not necessarily because you're looking forward to having a successful team. Maybe if they do lose this way, they have a million excuses and say, hey, guess what? Now we got a great chance to get a high caliber draft pick and a quarterback next year. So, I mean, that could be at the top of their thoughts as well. The other thing is for the other coaching situation, what has Josh McDaniels proven so far as a head coach in this league? Not much. The record is 7-23 for Josh McDaniels since his original 6-0 start with Denver. There's not much to smile about there, and things are falling apart in Raiders land right now. They got their key receivers are out. 2 guys go on IR this week, Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. Their linebacker, Blake Martinez, retired during the week. I don't want any more of this anymore. So what the hell is going on? Ron, what are your thoughts?
So where's the bad news? All you're bringing is the good news.
Oh, those are the positive things.
Joe Thomas yesterday just skewered the organization. I don't know if either of you saw his comments. He said, this is a clown job. And that's one respected Hall of Famer to a potential. I don't know if Jeff Saturday is a Hall of Famer or a potential Hall of Famer.
I think he is.
Yeah, but you got 2 of the respected players in the league, and they're apparently not friends based on the comments. I could say a lot of things about the stat sheet and so on, but I want Chris to go first because he pointed out something about how both teams are faring the last few weeks. So why don't you go ahead, Chris?
Yeah, I forgot to write down. We had a catchy name for the game. And the Buffalo line just moved it down to a 3 across the board finally.
Interesting.
This is the number 31 versus the number 32 team. Oop, I gotta get my VC
Josh
picked
Allen.
up.
If it's Josh, ask him.
This is the number 31, number 32 team over the last 5 weeks. So these are the teams playing the worst, facing each other, and they're both in total chaos. There's a big payment for Carr for $30 million next year. They're not going to keep him for $30 million, so he's going to go to, Carolina or maybe even Indianapolis. Who knows? So, they've got people retiring. They've got all their first round picks are no longer even around or contributing. If you were listening to the show a few weeks ago, we talked about this and we brought this up, and it was mentioned that the Colts are closer to a rebuild than vying for a playoff spot. And sure enough, a few weeks later, that's where we're sitting.
Yeah. The other thing is that the Vegas defense, we at the beginning of the year, we said, they've got some really good pickups here. This could be a solid D. They have been anything but that. And we talked about the sacks. They're last in the league in 9 sacks, and 6 of them are from Double X, Max Crosby, Ron.
Yeah, we had a little conversation, you and I, yesterday, and we were looking it up. Well, has Max Crosby done anything? Apparently, he's done everything.
Exactly, that's the problem.
2/3 of their sacks. They have 9 sacks. You want to hit the daily double, this is not the way to do it. Last in pass defense percentage, over 70%. And last in getting to the quarterback, which, of course, those are correlated. If you don't get to the quarterback has a lot of time to survey the field and do what he needs to do. So my question to you guys, or basically, I'm going to make a comment. You guys see if you think I'm on the right page, because I don't know what to expect about the new offensive coordinator for Indianapolis. He's never called plays. He's, who knows what's going on. I don't know what to make about Jeff Saturday. I kind of expect defensive aggression. I expect them to come full force against the run and the pass, to try to create havoc in the pocket. But I don't know whether they're going to be conservative on offense or wildly crazy on offense. I don't like the guesswork, in trying to figure this out. You guys have an idea of what Indy's going to be doing?
Well, I don't think they have an idea, and here's the matchup. We talked about it briefly before the show, which we don't usually do, by the way. But to me, I think the key to this game is you got a guy who has never, that's 0, folks, never called a play in the NFL. And he's going to do it with a interim head coach who has never coached a game in his life. I'm taking the home team. I'm laying points, and whatever happens, happens. And if Indy pulls it off, good for them. But how are they going to pull it off? There's 0 continuity there, and that scares the hell out of me. If you're talking about, a week and the team that's coming off a 3-game losing streak, how does that improve anything?
You have an interview with Jonathan Taylor. Did you grill him on how the hell they're going to be calling plays and such, and what the story is?
I did ask him. Yes, I did.
Well, let's hear what he has to say then.
You got it.
How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for coming on. We had you right before your first game in the pros, and you've done a really good job, man.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You probably don't remember, I'm former Wisconsin hockey announcer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On Wisconsin, those guys are rolling now too as well. So
there you go, man. So, some Badger love to you, sir. So, Jonathan, first, how's your ankle coming along? You missed a few games, and are you ready to pound it against the Raiders?
Yep, finally worked it back to health. It's always tough, because you want to be out there and you just know that they're still injured and you look like a 3-legged dog out there. So, you do what's best for the team. And now when you're finally back out there, especially on Wednesday, getting back out finally again, working with the guys, it just feels great to be back out there, not just for yourself, but like I said, being with the guys, going to work with your teammates that you've spent all offseason working with. So super excited for this weekend and, hopefully just continue to work with those guys every single week from here on out.
So what is going on inside of you, Jonathan, where this is a tough stretch, 3 straight losses, quarterback change, firing of your coach suddenly, a lot of uncertainties here.
I know, and one of the biggest things we spoke about is we got to get it done on Sundays. No matter what is going on around us in the building, we're all here for a reason, and our reason is to go out there and to bring wins back to Indianapolis every single Sunday, and that's been our main goal, especially with Jeff coming in. He's been incredible so far. But our number one thing is we got to go out to Las Vegas and we have to beat the Raiders. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's why Jeff is here. That's why, all of these moves are going on. We need to go out there and we need to take care of business on Sundays.
As early thoughts on Coach Saturday taking over. No experience, but a great history with your organization.
And I think that is one of his driving factors is he's been in this organization, so it's not – he just cares about the players and the coaches and the staff inside of this building. He mentioned it before. I mean, this is where he kind of transitioned. You come out of college, you're into the league. You're grown, you're a man, but he developed into the man he was while he was here. This helped forge him. So you could tell he truly cares about the successfulness and having this organization succeed. So, when you have a guy that's passionate as he is, it's easy to get behind him and understand, hey, we need to go to work and we need to make this happen now.
We are with the Colts running back, Jonathan Taylor. And have you had a chance to talk to Coach Saturday one-on-one yet?
I have. Coach Saturday. First thing, you just talk about, the guys that he played with, not only himself being a legend, but the guys and the teams that he played with and, picking his brain, what are some traits, what are some things that you guys did as teammates to keep everyone together, to keep everyone motivated. And I think one of the biggest things, he said they cared about one another. They cared about each other's success on the field. They cared about each other's families off of the field. It was just a genuine love and care for one another to succeed and doing anything you can to help them, whether it was doing your job, or whether it was having their back on the field, having their back with something off of the field. It's a brotherhood, and it's something that we need to continue to grow and to continue to create here in Indianapolis. And we already have that. But in order to get to where we want to go, like when Coach was playing, where they went, we need to have it even stronger.
Okay, well, my curiosity takes me, who the heck's going to call the plays this week?
This week we have Parks Frazier, who has moved up into that position, someone who's been here. Even before I was here, he's worked with Coach Frank and the offense very closely, quarterbacks. So it was only right to have Parks still being able to have his hands to help operate that portion of the game. And we all are behind Parks. We know that Parks, he studies this game inside and out, not only just for our team, but just the game in general, because he's continuing to grow his knowledge as well.
Couple more things. It's hard to win games. You're averaging under 15 a game right now. So your quarterback gets sacked 9 times last week. You were 0 for 14 on third downs. Bring up a positive. What are you stressing to turn things around?
The number one thing is, guys, a lot of these stats that are out here, the reason why a lot of these plays aren't executed is because of just simple fundamentals and technique. Now, that's something that can definitely be fixed. It's not lack of talent. A lot of times, and especially, let's say, on the college level, sometimes it's, just lack of talent. You have guys with very athletic, a team with very athletic guys and, guys who've been playing football for a long time. But our mistakes, a lot of them are just fundamentals and technique, something that can be repped over and over throughout the week in order to solidify, in order to strengthen those areas. So that's the biggest thing. It's not like there's something that we can't fix. That's when you have a true dilemma. Our dilemma right now is, hey, we need to go to work this week in practice on our fundamentals and technique. And
how's Sam dealing with coming off a couple of tough starts for him?
Anybody that has to step into a situation like he did, of course you want to throw for 500 yards. Of course you want to win every single game. But we all know this is the NFL, and this is a tough league to play in. And, of course, we all have to do our part around Sam as well, in which we didn't. So another thing is letting Sam know that it was a collective effort. All of those games, it was not just on him. It was a collective effort, offense, defense, and special teams. So don't put all of that weight on your shoulders because we all stepped out on that field with you as well.
Last thing, real quick, Jonathan, you got to be going crazy. You had one touchdown this year after an amazing 20 last season. So what do you got to do to turn things around in your biggest challenge against the Raiders D?
Number one is you have to stay consistent. A lot of, like, we know they have a great front up front, especially those guys on the edges.
Yep.
So we have to do a great job of trying to minimize the effect of those guys, because we know that they're great players, amazing players. But we have to stay consistent, especially, when we get down towards the red zone. That's when antennas have to go up, a sense of awareness has to go up, and just that edge. You have to score points. We have to score points. And like you said, scoring 50, averaging around 15, there have to be more in order to win games in this league.
That's Jonathan Taylor. One stat that I didn't bring up to him when he said how great that Vegas defensive, well, at least one guy, Max Crosby, is on that defense. They have blown 17-point leads 3 times this year. Guys, I don't remember the last time that's happened, and that is pitiful. I mean, pitiful.
Those were some great questions. He really sounds like a sharp guy.
He is. He's one of my favorites to talk to.
It sounds like the morale is not through the floorboards. It sounds like he's actually genuinely motivated, which is, a big question mark for people that want to bet this game is where is the motivational factors? And when you've got a leader in the locker room with a genuine optimism and a work ethic focused, that really would kind of make me want to, lean the Colts way a little bit.
But you know what? I think that's the main reason they made the change, was because they could see the downward spiral of everything going in Indy from every facet of the game. And now you bring in a guy who's just a total positive guy. Everybody loves Jeff Saturday. Forget his coaching inexperience. He has none. But maybe that attitude will help things, and then the assistants can just do their things from there. But look, the bottom line is, I don't know who the hell, what's his name again? Parks Frazier is. I wish him well. I hope he becomes the next Vince Lombardi this week. But I wouldn't bet a nickel on a team who's never had a guy call a play.
It could be technique. There could be something to what Jonathan Taylor said. What I heard loud and clear was his passion. His passion for the team and so on. And I hope people who are watching this really appreciate the fact that you get to have these interviews with some pretty good players this week, especially, and get their side of the story, the actual players that are playing the game, because I think it's fascinating to hear what they're saying. And Jonathan Taylor had a lot of passion. But for me, this game comes down to 2 things. 9 Raider sacks in 8 games is not very good. And yet the Indianapolis quarterback has himself been sacked 11 times in 2 games.
No, 9 times last week. Think about that.
Yeah.
9 times last week against 9 times all year.
So something has to give. And for me, there's so much guesswork in this game.
Totally.
That have fun and let's see what happens. And we'll see. I don't think Jeff Saturday is the long-term answer, but if he can get this team back on the right track, it wasn't that long ago that they were thinking we have a chance to get to the Super Bowl, and now they're hoping to get through the season.
Yeah, by the way, there's some injuries there too on Indy. I was supposed to have Deion Jackson, the running back, and they exchanged him for Jonathan because he didn't practice all week, and he's out for sure. Shaq Leonard is out, the linebacker. The tight end, Jelani Woods, is out. So, I mean, they're not exactly at full strength either. Again, how do you put money on a team with an offensive coordinator, or whatever you want to call him, has never called a play? I have zero confidence in that.
I've always been one of these people that really, unless it was specifically my home team and a player that I really was interested in, I kind of tune out player interviews a lot. But the last several weeks, we've had some real ability, some insight into the way these players are thinking. You've been asking some great questions, and you can get a read. We've had a couple people in there that have kind of just like feel like they're kind of going through the motions. And then we've had some guys that have shown some real passion, shown some real smarts. and have given us a few tidbits. And just really appreciate you being able to offer those to us. I am getting value of it because it may not even necessarily help this week, but it gives you some insight into the way these players are thinking, whether they're, jocks or they're intellectual, what their motivation is in general. And that's important.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I try to bring something else out of, we're going to give 110% type of questions.
Yeah.
That's why I ask those kind of questions. And, sometimes they give it and sometimes they don't. It's their prerogative. And some guys are incredibly open and others are just literally walking computers. They don't want to give you anything, and that's fine. And we'll shorten the hell out of those interviews as well. But look, we have a circus here in the background, which is wonderful. Way to go, Ron. Yeah, we're going to dance here in a minute.
Breaking news.
You see this thing over here? Where is that? My Badger is a helmet up there. So Jonathan and I are Badger buddies forever, being their former hockey announcer before he was born, of course.
So, Ron, do you get a kick in the nuts or you get a pat on the back here?
No play from me this week. Not from that game. Sorry. I emptied it all on Mini Buffalo. Not on this game.
I get a kick in the nuts also because I just can't touch this. But my metrics kind of lean a little bit toward the Colts. I think the Raiders are in self-destruct mode also. I think the Raiders might even be in worse shape, frankly.
Yeah, I agree with you. And by the way, do you guys have any thoughts about the longevity of Josh McDaniels on this job? He's new. I don't see how Davis is going to just swallow this kind of money, whatever he paid him for the amount of time. But this can't keep going like this. And he's not showing anything, even though he was given a real strange roster. And that's definitely affected, obviously.
Well, Monday's going to be the potentially a pink slip day in Las Vegas and potentially Los Angeles with the Chargers if they lay a big turd sandwich. Both of those guys are going to be on a severe hot seat if they were to lose these games. Wouldn't you agree, Ron? I mean, if Chargers lose badly.
I talked to both of you offline, and what the Raiders have done 4 straight years of horrible drafts. I don't blame McDaniels at all. I've watched a couple of his games. I don't see problems in the play calling. The roster is so incomplete. Only because we're talking about the Davis organization could there be a quick hook, because otherwise I don't think it's warranted.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is that how is McDaniels running his offense? That's where it seems to be, we know what the defense hasn't performed up, and Chandler Jones has been a basic no-show. I mean, I don't get that at all. I mean, he has a half a sack this year. So go figure that.
That's crazy. But 23 points per game. I think the offense is doing whatever it's doing behind a pretty bad offensive line.
Yes, but they still have their issues. They're shaking their head a lot. The body language is not good. You got Devontae Adams for a couple of weeks out of the last 3. He's had an incredible first half, and then he's not even on the team in the second half. How do you figure that out?
Yeah. Nobody likes losing.
No, I know, but it's not just that. I'm talking about why isn't he more? If he gets 9 catches in the first half, he better get at least 4 or 5 in the second. And he's not even involved. So that's not a good thing.
Well, speaking of catches and props, we're not going to have a lot of props out on some of these games due to the quarterback uncertainties. Yeah. There's a couple of props out on Josh Jacobs, who's had a fine year, but typically Indianapolis plays well against the run. Again, my thoughts on the game is that they're going to be aggressive defensively. I have gone under 87.5 for his running yards. There's 85.5 and 87.5 up there. And for the first game, I just want to note this with Case Keenum. He does not have a history of throwing to his running backs. Chris mentioned he queried me on how many starts he's had or how many games he's played. So we have a very large sample size on Case Keenum. He tends not to throw much to his running backs. We saw Hawkinson be used. He caught 9 passes, 70 yards. I don't think he knows all the playbook right now, but you can certainly hit him on some of the short stuff still. I don't expect a lot of yards from him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had another 4 or 5 or so catches. Those are the 3 things that I can point out right now. Props don't come out as early as they used to for some of these offshore places, primarily because we have to wait for the Friday injury report and the infirmary report.
Oh, by the way, speaking to Case Keenum, he did tell us that he's probably not going to get as many targets with Hockenson in the lineup. So that's the thing to look at. Because also, did I say Case Keenum? Adam Thielen.
Yeah, Adam Thielen. Yeah.
Adam Thielen. He is not 100% either. He's a little bit banged up. He's playing, but he might be one of these guys to look at maybe for the unders as far as catches goes.
And I've got to remind people that you get a kick in the nuts for your Stafford over a half an interception from last week, Ron.
Yeah, so maybe we should introduce Chris's 1-0 stellar record on props offline on, I think it was Sunday morning. We talked about ways to address Rondale Moore. You went alternate line with a number of different areas with yardage. And I thought he was more of a short guy, so I went up alternate line with number of catches, but ultimately not bad, Chris.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a nice perspective that somebody shared that has very noteworthy connections. And Rondale Moore is going to be more involved in the lineup with Arizona. So we got that notice, and we were able to play the over 4.5, and I played the yardage, alternate yardage numbers up to like 70. So kind of looking for that again this week. So that'll be my prop contribution for the week is let's look at Rondale Moore over 4.5 again this week. You think it'll come out at that number again, right?
A lot depends on who's named quarterback. We got Murray as a game time decision. The number will be less if Colt McCoy comes out. But Colt McCoy does a lot of short passing as well. You could see 6 catches and 30 yards out of him if you don't watch out with Colt McCoy.
Yeah, I have one kick in the nuts straight to Mr. Vegas Chris over here because he laughed at me last week when out of the blue they said, so what are your thoughts on any other games? And I said that the one blowout is going to be Cincinnati over Carolina. And you said, oh, well, then maybe I need to go with Carolina.
Yeah, that's true.
And what was the blowout game? I gave it to you guys, and it was a freebie.
You get the pat on the back.
Thank you. And I deserved it.
Oh, so Chris, you had a story about either Buffalo or Minnesota, right? That we were
it wasn't as it's not as good this time because a week ago we were looking at this line. We were chatting. I think it was around the time that we were working the Rondale Moore stuff, and I noticed that the look ahead line was 9.5, and I just started laughing. I go, this has got to be nuts, and so I'm making some moves, and I'm checking the line, see if I can get a 10 maybe. And I go, let me check my numbers again, and I'm like, I think I'm going to be on Buffalo. They could be so wrong. That I was going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. And at that time with the current numbers, I would have been actually playing the opposite side of what I would be passionate behind.
So we're sure you did get your 9.5, right? I know you're.
No, I have no action on that game.
I know you don't.
Yeah.
It's looking pretty good right now.
What are you guys looking forward to in any other game? Is there one or two other games that intrigues you?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by what Justin Fields is. Everybody wanted to get rid of this guy so fast, almost after every single game. And now he's like the guaranteed future for the next 20 years in Chicago. So I'm just really, it's like, okay, you got a home game. You got the Detroit Lions, a dome team coming in on a cold day. You got no excuse, buddy. I want to see what you got to do this week. You going to run for 170 yards again? I mean, he's looking good. Their O-line is still all over the place. I trust nothing there, but he's doing a great job the last few weeks, even though they're losing. Okay.
let this be a lesson to recency bias, which we have not talked about for I think since the beginning of the season. And there's a handful of teams, in my opinion, that are really, really tough to bet against right now. The Bears, with that volatile offense. Miami, it's hard to bet against them. There's teams that are hard to bet on also. So just you have to kind of remember that you can't believe your lying eyes, and you can't let what happened the last game become too important within your decision of whether you're going to take a team or not, because each week is a brand new week, and there are a hell of a lot of games where a team looks like a world beater one week, and then they can't tie their own laces the next week. And getting to the Chicago game, though, I'm a Lions fan.
Yes,
if I was a square bettor that didn't have metrics and I was betting that game, that would be one of the biggest bets I've ever made all season long, would be on the Bears. And I don't know how Detroit's going to stop them. I think that they're going to have trouble with the mobile quarterback. I think they're going to have some trouble on offense. And I just don't see them having a hope or a prayer. With that in mind, I don't have a wager on it because my metrics kind of do lean toward Detroit a little bit, and thankfully not enough for me to have to bet Detroit.
But I bring it up, and I want to get Ron's thoughts on this because we talked about it before Justin Fields was drafted. Okay, I sort of liked the pick by the Bears, maybe not exactly where they got him, but I thought that he would be a pretty good look. They haven't had a good quarterback since 1948 or something, whatever it is.
Derek Kramer,
like I said, our old he used to live in the San Fernando Valley out here, Eric. Anyway, I don't know what he's going to do, and everybody's all over. Like, well, look at Justin Fields now, runs for 107. They've lost 2 straight, and they're 0-2 in the division. So it's like, okay, he looks better, but they haven't won. So what's the excitement, Ron? What are your thoughts on Fields?
Well, training wheels, that's what it is. There's training wheels on 6 or 7 quarterbacks in the league. Justin Willis, he's thrown 20, he's completed 11 passes in 2 games. They let Fields throw 15, 20, 22 times a game. They're just sorting things out. My evaluation pre-draft is that Fields could make any throw, but he's not yet ready to read NFL defenses. He does it based on his body type, which is really good, his escapability, which is excellent. But until he learns to trust what he sees and he gets chemistry with it, you're just going to see, we said this at the beginning of the year, you're going to see some really good games, and you're going to see one of those games where he takes 9 sacks. Yeah. And Chicago's been sacked 33 times this year. So I don't know if Detroit can do anything about it because they only have 12 on the year. That's the problem for Detroit, is Justin Fields is still vulnerable, like the recency factor that Chris mentioned. Just because he had a great game last week doesn't mean he's going to have a great game this week, but he's lucky he's playing that kind of defense.
But again, he had a great game, but they lost. Okay? We keep talking about it.
But he kept bringing him back. He kept bringing him back.
No, absolutely. But why are they where they are? And Matt Eberflus is all of a sudden people are saying, hey, this guy's looking really good. Their record stinks. Okay, so
yeah, but you gotta
I'm not saying they should be winning, but maybe there's some progression there, but I can't get excited about it yet.
Well, positive vibes, that's what the organization wants to do. But you bring up fascinating thing, because this is all directly tied to Miami. Why did Justin Fields bring him back? Because Miami doesn't play very good defense.
Exactly.
And now if you ask me, the game that interests me the most, it's a rested Cleveland team that has underperformed defensively against Tua, whose scheme is unbelievably perfect. But then you got Chubb and Kareem Hunt going against a Miami defense that it's just going to be hit for chunks of yardage. I'm just curious. I think it's a fascinating game. And I'm just curious to see what Cleveland has learned during their bye week, because offhand, this looks like Miami is going to have their way offensively and Cleveland's going to have their way in the run game, and it's going to be another 35-32.
Yeah, it should be a high-scoring game.
And let's not forget, they're not only are they coming off the bye, but they're coming off a really nice win on national TV against the Bungles, and that's something that they can build on. And there could be some optimism, built through this bye week, which will be very good for them. And for those people that think that Miami's a top 10 team, you are. I'm sorry, you are not a top 10 team with the 28th defense. Okay, it has to be a rule. So keep dreaming. I think there's a bright future in Miami, but you're not there yet.
Yeah, and by the way, Cleveland is still. I believe if they lose this week, which obviously they can, I think Stefanski's in trouble, because I think they're one of the most disappointing teams from a roster standpoint the entire year. So what? So they beat Cincinnati at home. Congratulations. And I picked Cincinnati to beat the crap out of Carolina the next week, and they did. So congratulations. Do it again.
Well, quietly, Cleveland has moved into the top half of the 32 teams in the NFL in my rankings. So they've just had some rough goes of it. I mean, they've lost these close games, and that's a little bit of variance involved that can switch their direction.
Yeah, a couple other games real quick. Dallas at Green Bay. You got the homecoming for Coach McCarthy. We'll see how that goes. It might be emotional, but it could also be a total blowout. Look, the Packers just look awful. They got so many injuries, and they're down. This is the kind of game, though, that if they're ever going to do something surprising, just keep it low scoring, hand the ball off to your two running backs, and that, to me, is going to give you a shot in the game. And I've never liked the way that McCarthy handles the clock, so maybe the clock will run out on him in this game back at his old home. Who knows? And the other one is the Rams and Cardinals. Matthew Stafford, does he play or not? Who the heck knows? But, hey, John Wolford has got a couple of wins under his belt, right, as a backup starter?
Yeah. Well, we have 6 teams that have come off buys this week. We have 4 that are on buys right now, so we're not going to see those 4. But Ted, 3 of them we're going to talk about next week.
Exactly. So let's go about the thoughts on the bye week teams coming back this week first, and then we got a game. We got 2 games for you next week on Sports USA. The Jets at New England, Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. 3 of those off of buys, and Pittsburgh gets T.J. Watt back this week after missing 7 games. So that's a nice addition, and hopefully he gets through this game so we can talk about him next week too.
Yeah. What do you got, Chris?
I want to just go back. I kind of agree with what Ted was saying with the a lower scoring game with that Dallas Green Bay. You got to remember something. Green Bay's been losing, but they're not giving up points.
Right.
Their defense isn't that bad. So
they did lose their best defensive player though for the year. Gary.
Right. Now they've lost more players this week. They lost more than a game in Detroit. They've lost a lot of bullets.
Yep.
But this will be the showcase game in the afternoon on national TV, so a little bit of extra motivation.
And not on national radio. National radio is Indy and Vegas. That's the showcase game.
Okay. And now you made me lose my train of thought. I don't like it. Looking at it from a market perspective, I don't like this line movement. And I don't know whether you've noticed anything fishy with this, but I'm very surprised that this line has been moved down to a solid 4, and it's sat there for a while. It doesn't pass the sniff test, and this comes from years of market reading. And I could be wrong, but it just has my antenna up. Does that seem like odd line movement to you, Ron?
I thought the line was improperly priced to begin with at 5.5. Now, I didn't take into account the rash of injuries. I didn't know what it was, but based on my non-injury power ratings, I said, that's too high. This line really should have been 3.5 if Gary was there, if Jones was there, and so on. So I'm a little surprised they bumped it up. I think maybe Vegas thought that they could set it there because perception was that Dallas is neck and neck with Philly and Green Bay is done. And Green Bay may very well be done. Look at their next 3 games.
Yep.
They play this week against Dallas. Then I think they're Thursday night football against Tennessee. So they got to come right back. And then they have to play Philly after that. So they could be completely toast and disinterested after that.
Could be 8 straight losses.
I mean, it's a brutal stretch, and it's really is now or never for them.
This brings up another topic. At what point do you have Love's contract ending? You're either going to have to pay him or let him go. At what point do you have to put Love in the lineup and protect your $50 million a year arm, Rodgers?
In 3 weeks after they lose 8 in a row. I don't.
Right after they're eliminated.
Yeah, and you're not going to start him against like a Philly. That makes no sense to me. So if they lose 8 straight, then major talk about that. By the way, weather again in Green Bay, first time cold. It's going to be in the low 30s, as what I understand. So how about Dallas outside? Maybe they don't want any part of that. I have no idea.
Yeah. It's interesting to see what the body language is. Yeah.
My last comment is I think the most interesting game of the day will be finished by the time some people wake up, and that is the Seattle-Tampa Bay game. And I don't want to talk about it because I don't think you can go to any media outlet where they're not already talking about it. It's a matter of the metrics, and this season says Seattle's the better team versus Tampa getting back a few players and building off of their big win and working off of priors. The travel is no problem because they're traveling equal distance. And I'm just looking forward to see what happens in this game.
I want to be the first person in the history of the world to say, of course, you're going to pick Geno Smith over Tom Brady. It's not even close. So I wanted to be the first to ever say that. We're talking, this is a whole new Geno, baby. Go, do it.
Ron, final thoughts?
I'm done. I'm looking forward to it's a fascinating week because when you have 6 teams off buys, what do the new coaches learn? Denver's coach, for example, I think that's the one where we need him to self-scout him, their own team, his own play calling and so on, because you were talking about coaches on the hot seat. He could be one and done if this goes south because he's done some really questionable things in the first 6, 7, 8 weeks. So I'm really looking to see what the bye week does to rejuvenate some of these teams, and we'll just play it by ear from there.
Well, and your 2 keys, which you pointed out in the previews, is you have 2 rookie coaches that are coming off the bye. They've had their chance to push the reset button and to collect their, gather their bearings. And let's see what the Giants do. Let's see what Denver does out of these buys.
Yeah, I like the Giants there big time. From a coaching standpoint. And the other thing is, you mentioned that Brandon Staley needs to win this week. I don't agree. And you don't. I've been all over his case.
I think he can lose. I think he can lose, but if they get blown out, I think it's.
I don't think it matters. I think he's got a great relationship with his general manager. I can't see them just tossing him after one game. And I'm way down on him. I mean, he's got to prove to me that he's a NFL head coach for sure. But separate from that, I can't see them firing him. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, you're our inside guy there, so
which means he's in big trouble.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody joining us. Ron and I will be back on Tuesday, and the 3 of us are going to be back next Friday with Jets, Patriots, Bungles, Steelers, and a bunch of other stuff. Good luck this weekend, and thanks for joining us.